The word michelada is a portmanteau, which loosely translates as my cold beer. Chela being slang for beer, ada short for helada, meaning cold, and mi for mine. Of course, any Spanish speakers, please feel free to correct me if the internet has steered me wrong here, and also please excuse my pronunciation. As with many cocktails, the history of this is as clear as the drink itself. But the most popular version seems to be that a man named Michel Esper Jorge from San Luis Potosi was a bit hungover one day and started throwing some seasonings and lime juice into his beer in a quest for refreshment. This drink has since taken on a life of its own, and much like the Bloody Mary, everyone has their own take on it. According to my friend Alec Villarreal Wirtz, who was my resident Mexican consultant for this and also owns an amazing restaurant called Taquito here in Melbourne, you should definitely check it out if you're a local. He and his friends would literally just think of a michelada as being beer, lime and a salt rim, maybe a dash of Maggi seasoning or Tabasco, whereas other regions will have their own takes. So for instance, he's even had a mango michelada. It definitely seems to be about keeping cool there, so the beer and lime are the main components for the ultimate refreshment. Outside of Mexico, I've seen so many variations. Some add a spike of tequila or mezcal, some add tomato juice, some do fusions using more Asian-leaning seasonings, but the beer base, preferably Mexican, is a constant. This seems like the perfect opportunity to show you the drink which has got me through many shifts after a late night. Mine is more similar to the Bloody Mary, so it's savoury and satisfying with just enough booze to perk you up without getting you drunk again. This is my probably very unauthentic take on the michelada, learned from my good friend and fellow occasional overindulger, Nick Cousins. This drink can just be built as the fizzy lager actually does all of the aerating for you, but you do have to keep everything as cold as you can. Definitely keep the glass in the freezer if possible, and if you're making a lot, I'd suggest batching all of your seasoning and keeping that chilled as well. I also like to have a really intense base, hence the rather ungodly amount of Maggi and Worcester seasoning, and then I serve the rest of the beer on the side so that the first few mouthfuls are a bit of a whack in the face to get you going, but then you can kind of gradually top up and lengthen it out to the point where the beer is the dominant flavour, and by that point, you should be fully revived. It's definitely not necessary to have either the mezcal or the tomato juice, and I do have to apologize to my Mexican consultant Alec for that because I know that that's not how he does it. But I just like the little smoky dimension from the mezcal and the mouthfeel from the tomato juice, but definitely leave them out for something crisper and easier going. Just probably cut back on the Maggi too, as it does need the tomato to kind of balance it out. Similarly, if you don't have a really savoury palate like Nick and I, then you might want to start out with a little less of all of the seasonings and then kind of add until you hit a sweet spot. There's not a uniform serve. I do prefer to serve it on ice, but often they're not. The mezcal is just a spike here, so you don't really have to use anything too good. I'm using Kikiriki or Vida is another good go-to for cocktails. It's still made in a traditional and sustainable way, but sits at a good price point. The beer should be crisp and clean. Mexican is of course traditional, so we used Corona because we felt they could do with a little bit of good PR as well, but any easy drinking lager will work. First we're gonna squeeze some lime juice, cut it in half, and then we do need a little wedge to run around to do our rim as well. So on this one I do like to do a full rim because tahin's delicious. It's a little kind of spicy seasoning mix which has some dehydrated lime juice in there too. So obviously works perfectly with all of the flavors that we're playing with, but absolutely just some coarse salt will work as well. It's basically a little bit spicy, a little bit salty, and a little bit citrusy, which is all of the flavors that we're playing with here, so it's perfect. And then we're gonna go 15 mils of a decent quality mezcal, but doesn't have to be anything fancy obviously, it's just a little spike. 15 mils of lime juice. 15 mils of Maggi or Maggi, whichever the correct way to say it is. So it's kind of almost like soy sauce. That's actually why I do split this between both Maggi and the Worcester, because this one has a bit more, it's kind of molasses and vinegar, a little bit of like a richer, rounder flavor. It is a good hack too though for, because it's vegetarian as opposed to Worcester, which isn't, because it's got anchovies in there. So if you are ever making Bloody Marys too for someone who's vegetarian, then Maggie's is a good substitute for all of that lovely umami flavor. 15 mils of Worcester sauce. So about 10 mils of agave. Obviously in the Bloody Mary, I didn't add any sweetener because there's more tomato juice in there and not really as much in balancing it out. Whereas obviously your lager is pretty crisp and dry, and you've got all of these sort of really savory flavors. So this just helps boost the sweetness of the tomato juice. And then about 60 mils of tomato juice, about 5 dashes of hot sauce to taste. Tabasco obviously works as well. I'm going with the, actual imported Mexican real deal Cholula. It's just got almost like a little bit more kind of smokiness and I guess vibrancy for me compared to Tabasco, but absolutely can substitute either way. Couple of good grinds of black pepper. Then fill with beer to about halfway. And then fill up with ice. Give it a little stir. Now, I don't bother garnishing this because, as I've said, this is just very much my I need to, do something to fix me at the moment. But similarly to Bloody Marys, you can find them garnished with all sorts of kind of over-the-top, weird and wonderful things. So feel free to have a little bit of fun if you like. But since we're doing my version, a michelada, or at least a version of it that's my favorite. So now you know. It's so tasty. Yeah, you need to try it. It sounds a bit weird and over the top, and it is. It's so it just every single taste bud in your mouth is going at the moment, waking you up, mouth is watering. You know that the day is going to be a good day if you start with one of these. So as I said, those first couple of mouthfuls are total flavor explosion. And then you can add a little bit more beer. And that way you're kind of drinking the more intense flavors through the beer. And it starts to chill out a little bit, tastes a little bit more just like a beer, and you just kind of sit on that, do that the whole way through. And I promise you, by the end of it, you'll be cured.